I was standing in my parents' driveway when I saw it through their living room window. My mother, wearing the diamond bracelet I'd bought her for Christmas, was laughing with my father as they showed off glossy brochures to my sister Ellie. Lake house brochures. The same lake house my mother had mentioned in passing 3 months ago, the one she'd sighed over like a distant dream. $60,000 for the down payment, she'd said wistfully. Impossible, of course. Except there it was marked with sticky notes and highlighter, a done deal. I'd just come from the bank. 20 minutes earlier, I'd sat across from a manager who'd informed me that my savings account, the one that had held $127,000 3 days ago, now contained $847. Fraudulent activity, I'd said. No, ma'am, he'd replied, showing me the authorizations. Your father withdrew $45,000 on Monday. Your mother transferred $60,000 on Tuesday. Both authorized signers since you opened this account at 17. My phone buzzed in my hand. A text from Ellie, can you Venmo me $3K? Emergency. My car broke down in Santa Monica. I looked up at that window again. Ellie was right there, perfectly fine, holding a champagne flute and laughing at something on her phone. Probably checking to see if I'd sent the money yet. The bracelet on my mother's wrist caught the light. The one I'd paid for. On the wrist attached to the hand that had just stolen my life savings. For a lake house. Something inside me didn't break. It crystallized. Hardened into something cold and sharp and absolutely done. But before we get into what happened next, I need you to understand how I got here. If this story resonates with you, if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, hit that like button. Subscribe, because this journey gets darker before it gets lighter, and drop a comment telling me if you've ever been the family ATM. Trust me, you're not alone. Let me take you back to where this really started. Not to the text message, not even to last week or last month, but to 17 years ago when I was 11 years old and my sister Ellie was 5. My parents sat me down in our kitchen in Pasadena, the same kitchen where years later I'd have my final meal with them. My mother Eleanor was wearing her pearls, the ones she always wore when she needed to deliver news she'd already decided was final. My father Richard stood behind her with his arms crossed, his jaw set in that way that meant no discussion would be tolerated. They told me that things were going to change. Money was tight. I was the oldest, so I needed to step up. That meant no more piano lessons, no more summer camps, no more birthday parties. Those things cost money, and Ellie needed those opportunities more than I did, because she was younger, more talented, more promising. My mother actually used that word, promising, as if at 11 years old my promise had already expired. I nodded. I didn't cry. I'd learned early that crying in our house was considered manipulation, weakness, attention-seeking. So I swallowed it down and asked what I could do to help. That question became the anthem of my adolescence. What can I do to help? I started babysitting Ellie after school when I was 12 while my parents worked. By 13, I was cooking dinner 4 nights a week. At 14, I got my first real job, supposedly to save for college, but somehow that money kept disappearing into family emergencies. A new transmission for Dad's truck. Dance competition fees for Ellie. A medical bill that insurance didn't cover. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself that when things got better, when my parents' business picked up, when Ellie got older and could contribute, things would balance out. I told myself a lot of lies in those years. High school was a blur of advanced placement classes, a part-time job at a marketing firm, and constant exhaustion. I got into UCLA on a full academic scholarship, a miracle considering I'd filled out all the forms myself, written all the essays in the stolen hours between shifts. My parents came to my graduation late because Ellie had a recital that morning. They stayed for the ceremony but left before the reception because they had dinner plans. I stood in the parking lot in my cap and gown watching their car disappear and felt nothing. That should have been my first warning sign, that numbness. But I was good at ignoring warning signs. College was supposed to be my escape. 4 years to figure out who I was beyond the role of family caretaker, financial backup, and emotional punching bag. Instead, it became 4 years of weekly phone calls asking for money. Ellie needed new equipment for dance. Dad's business was slow. Mom's car needed repairs. Could I just send $500? Just $1,000. Just $2,000. I worked 3 jobs and graduated with honors, but I also graduated with $30 0 student loans because half my scholarship money had somehow found its way home. After graduation, I moved into a tiny studio apartment in Culver City and started working at a real estate marketing firm. I was good at it, better than good. I understood how to sell dreams probably because I'd been buying into my own family's dream of eventual reciprocity for so long. Within 2 years, I'd started my own boutique firm, specializing in luxury property marketing. Within 5 years, I was pulling in mid-six figures annually. My parents never asked about my business. My mother mentioned it once at a family dinner, calling it nice that Alex has a little hobby that pays. A hobby. I just closed a deal that netted me an $80,000 commission, and she called it a hobby. The money kept flowing out. I bought my parents their house when I was 26, a 4-bedroom craftsman in a good neighborhood because they'd been renting forever and Dad's credit was shot from a business bankruptcy. I put it in their name, told myself it was an investment in family stability. I covered Ellie's tuition at Chapman University, $60,000 a year. For a film studies degree, she approached with the enthusiasm of someone shopping for throw pillows. I paid for her apartment in Orange, her car, her spring break trips to Cabo and Miami and Tulum. I set up automatic transfers so I wouldn't have to think about it, wouldn't have to see the running total of what I was giving versus what I was receiving. What I was receiving was criticism. Constant, casual, cutting criticism dressed up as concern. My mother worried I was getting too thin, then too heavy, then too thin again. My father thought my business was lucky timing, not skill, and made sure to mention it every time I shared a success. When I bought myself a BMW paid for in cash, my mother asked if I thought I was better than them now. When I mentioned feeling burned out, my father told me I didn't know what real work was like. When I showed up to family dinners alone, they asked when I was going to find someone, as if I had time for dating between running my business and funding their lifestyle. When I brought someone to dinner once, a kind man named David who worked in architecture, my father spent the evening making jokes about how men in creative fields weren't real men, and my mother asked David if he was comfortable with dating someone who made more money than him. David and I broke up 3 weeks later. He said I seemed more like an ATM than a person always calculating costs and obligations. He wasn't wrong. Ellie was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. When she failed out of her first semester because she'd spent more time at parties than classes, my parents blamed the professors for being too demanding. When she wrecked her car driving drunk, my parents blamed the friend who'd let her drive. When she stole $5,000 from my mother's purse to fund a trip to Coachella with her boyfriend, my parents sat me down and suggested I be more understanding of Ellie's need for self-expression. I paid to replace the money. Of course I did. That's what I did. I fixed things. I covered things. I absorbed things. The worst part wasn't the money, though. It was the invisibility. I could walk into a room and they wouldn't look up. I could share news about my business and they'd change the subject to Ellie's latest audition or Dad's golf game. I could cancel plans to help with an emergency and receive no acknowledgement beyond an assumption that I'd do it again. I existed in their lives only as a function, never as a person. I was the solution to their problems, never someone who might have problems of my own. Years of this. 17 years of being the strong one, the capable one, the one who didn't need anything because I'd never been allowed to need anything. Then came last month. The beginning of the end, though, I didn't know it yet. I'd landed the biggest client of my career, a development company looking to market a $50 million luxury condominium project in downtown LA. It was going to triple my revenue, establish my firm as a major player, and require me to hire a full team instead of relying on contractors and my assistant Mark. I was thrilled, terrified, and exhausted in the best possible way. I wanted to celebrate. I wanted my family to celebrate with me. I made reservations at Providence, an expensive seafood restaurant in Hollywood, my treat, obviously. I bought a bottle of champagne. I got my hair done. I wore a dress I'd been saving for something special. I felt for the first time in years like maybe they'd be proud of me. Maybe this achievement was big enough, significant enough that they'd finally see me. I should have known better. I did know better. But hope is a stupid, stubborn thing. We met at the restaurant at 7. My parents arrived 15 minutes late, complaining about traffic they could have avoided if they'd left on time. Ellie showed up 20 minutes late, didn't apologize, and immediately started scrolling through her phone. I ordered the champagne. When it arrived, I raised my glass and started to explain about the new client, the expansion, what it meant for my business. My father interrupted me before I'd finished 2 sentences. "That's great, Alex. Really. But let's talk about Ellie's news." She got a call back for a commercial. I lowered my glass. My mother was already turned toward Ellie, beaming with pride. "Tell Alex about it, sweetheart. It's for a major brand." Ellie barely glanced up from her phone. "It's just a callback, Mom. Not a big deal." But my mother insisted she share every detail, how she'd nailed the audition, how the casting director had loved her, how this could be her big break. I sat there, champagne going flat in my glass, and listened to them dissect every moment of Ellie's 3-minute audition for a commercial she probably wouldn't book. When there was finally a lull, I tried again. "So, about my news." My father cut me off again. "You know, Alex, I've been thinking. You've been pretty lucky with this real estate thing. Right place, right time. But don't forget, luck runs out. You should probably think about a backup plan. Maybe get a real job with benefits security. This entrepreneur stuff is risky. A real job. I'd been running a successful business for 7 years. I had 6 employees. I'd just landed a multi-million-dollar contract. And he called it luck, called it risky, suggested I get a real job." My mother nodded along. "Your father's right. You're not getting any younger. What happens if the market crashes? You don't have a husband to fall back on. Fall back on. As if that's what partners were for. As if I hadn't been their fallback for nearly 2 decades. I tried one more time. This contract is a really big deal. It's going to change everything for my business." Ellie finally looked up from her phone. "That's cool, I guess. Hey, speaking of money, can you cover my credit card this month? I'm a little short. Not congratulations. Not that's amazing. Just can you cover my credit card?" My mother jumped in before I could respond. "Oh, and Alex, we need to talk about the mortgage. The bank sent a notice about escrow. Can you look into that? You know your father and I don't understand all that financial stuff." Something cracked inside me then. Not broke, just cracked. A hairline fracture that would spread and spread until the whole structure collapsed. I put my champagne glass down carefully, precisely, and looked at each of them. My father was already flagging down the waiter for another drink. My mother was reapplying her lipstick. Ellie had returned to her phone. None of them were looking at me. None of them had really looked at me all night. "Excuse me," I said quietly. "I need to use the restroom." Nobody acknowledged that I'd spoken. I walked to the bathroom on autopilot, locked myself in a stall, and stood there breathing slowly, evenly, the way I'd taught myself to breathe through panic attacks when I was 16 and drowning in responsibilities. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. There it was, the evidence of my own complicity. Automatic payment to First National Bank, $3,400 monthly, the mortgage on my parents' house. Automatic payment to Chapman University, $5,000 monthly, Ellie's tuition and housing. Automatic payment to American Express, $1,200 monthly average, the supplementary card I'd given Ellie for emergencies that she used for everything from designer handbags to concert tickets. Other transfers scattered throughout my transaction history. $800 here for Dad's truck repair. $1,500 there for Mom's dental work. $2,000 for Ellie's spring break trip. $5,000 for their 20th anniversary party that I'd planned, paid for, and been thanked for, exactly 0 times. I did the math standing there in that bathroom stall. Over the past 10 years, I'd given my family over $700,000. Not loaned. Given. Because they never paid me back. They never even acknowledged that payback was a possibility. $700,000. I could have bought a house in cash. I could have retired early. I could have traveled the world. Instead, I'd funded a lifestyle for people who saw me as an obligation at best, an annoyance at worst. I walked back to the table. The food had arrived. They were eating, talking about Ellie's callback, about Dad's golf tournament next month, about Mom's book club. I sat down. My father glanced at me. "Your fish is getting cold." I picked up my fork. I ate my expensive meal that I was paying for at a celebration dinner for an achievement nobody had acknowledged, surrounded by family who wouldn't notice if I disappeared. And I made a decision. When the check came, my father didn't even reach for his wallet. He never did. I paid. I always did. I drove home to my apartment in Culver City, the modest 1-bedroom I'd been living in for 8 years, because every time I considered upgrading another family emergency would drain my savings. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and my banking app, and I looked at everything clearly for the first time in my adult life. I wasn't helping my family. I was enabling them. I wasn't being generous. I was being exploited. And they didn't love me more for it. If anything, they respected me less. The more I gave, the less I mattered. I spent that night creating spreadsheets, gathering documentation, and making plans. I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I worked with the cold efficiency I brought to my most challenging marketing campaigns, except this time the product I was marketing was my own freedom. 3 days later, they invited me to another family dinner. My mother called casual as anything. Come over Sunday. I'm making pot roast, no please. No asking if I was free. Just an assumption that I'd drop everything as always. I said yes. I had something I needed to do in person. I arrived exactly on time. The house I'd bought them looked good. New landscaping that I'd paid for. Fresh paint that I'd paid for. My mother answered the door wearing a new dress I'd probably paid for via one of Ellie's shopping trips on the supplementary credit card. Oh, good, you're here. Can you help me in the kitchen? Before I even took off my coat, I was being assigned tasks. I helped. I set the table. I poured water. I played my role one last time. We sat down to dinner. Ellie was on her phone. Dad was already complaining about something, a client who'd been unreasonable, as if unreasonable clients were a unique hardship he alone faced. Mom was directing the conversation like a conductor, making sure everyone's attention stayed on the right people, which never included me. I ate my pot roast. It was good. My mother was a good cook. I'd probably inherited my work ethic from her, the ability to produce results even when unappreciated. So my father said, pointing his fork at me, "Did you look into that escrow thing?" There it was. I put down my fork. I did. He waited. My mother looked at me expectantly. Even Ellie glanced up from her phone. And my father prompted. I took a breath. This was it. The moment I'd been rehearsing in my head for days. I'm not going to fix it. Silence. Actual silence, which almost never happened in this house. My father's face darkened. What do you mean you're not going to fix it? I mean, I'm not going to fix it. It's your house. You fix it. My mother laughed a nervous little sound. Alex, don't be ridiculous. You know, we don't understand those banking things. Then learn. The words came out flat cold. I'd surprised myself with how emotionless I sounded. My father's face was turning red now. Excuse me, I said, learn. I'm not your personal assistant. I'm not your bank. I'm not your problem solver. Ellie chimed in, irritation clear in her voice. What's wrong with you? Mom asked you to help with something. I turned to look at her directly. When was the last time you asked me how I was doing? She blinked. What, how I was doing? My life. My business. My feelings. When was the last time you asked? I don't know. I mean, you're always fine. You're Alex. You handle everything, right? I handle everything. I pay for everything. I show up for everything. And what do? Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. My mother stepped in her voice, taking on that sharp edge she used when someone was misbehaving. Alex, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this attitude is unacceptable. You're right. It is unacceptable. It's been unacceptable for years. My father slammed his hand on the table, making the dishes jump. You watch your tone. We're your family. We raised you, fed you, gave you a home. You did. When I was a child. And I've been repaying that debt since I was 14. But the debt is paid now. More than paid. I pulled out my phone, opened the spreadsheet I'd created. Do you want to see the numbers? $743,000 over 10 years. That's what I've given this family. The house you're sitting in, I bought it. The car in the driveway, I bought it. Ellie's education, I'm paying for it. Your mortgage, your bills, your lifestyle. All me. And do you know what I've gotten in return? Nobody answered. My mother's face had gone pale. Ellie was staring at her plate. My father's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping. Nothing, I answered for them. Not thanks. Not respect. Not even basic acknowledgement that I exist as anything other than a solution to your problems. Tonight at dinner, did any of you ask about my day? My week? My life? Did any of you even look at me before you needed something? The silence stretched out. Finally, my father spoke, his voice low and dangerous. So what, you're throwing a tantrum because you feel unappreciated? Grow up, Alex. That's what family does. We help each other. Help implies reciprocity. This isn't help. This is extraction. My mother's voice was cold now, the warmth completely gone. You've always been dramatic. Making everything about you. When I asked, when have I ever made anything about me? Name one time. She couldn't. I knew she couldn't because it had never happened. Ellie tried a different approach, her voice soft, manipulative in that way she'd perfected. Alex, I know we don't say it enough, but we appreciate you. We love you. You're so strong, so capable. We rely on you because we know you can handle it. I don't want to be relied on anymore. I want to be seen." My father stood up his chair, scraping loud against the floor. "This is ridiculous. You're being selfish. After everything we've done for you, what have you done for me?" The question hung there. "You're our daughter," my mother said, as if that was an answer. "And you're my parents. But somewhere along the way, we stopped being a family and became a transaction. You transact with me when you need something. Otherwise, I don't exist." "That's not true," Ellie protested. "Okay. When's my birthday?" She froze. "What, my birthday? When is it? I don't. I mean, it's in the summer sometime, right? March 15th. It was 6 weeks ago. None of you called. None of you texted. I turned 30 years old and my own family forgot." My mother looked genuinely startled. "Oh, Alex, I'm sorry. Things have been so busy. They're always busy. For 17 years, things have been too busy for you to see me. So I'm going to make it easier for you." I pulled an envelope out of my bag and placed it on the table. "What's this?" my father asked suspiciously. "A letter. It explains everything that's changing effective immediately. I'm canceling all automatic payments. The mortgage, the tuition, the credit cards, everything. You have 30 days to make your own arrangements." The explosion was immediate and expected. My father started yelling about betrayal, about abandonment, about what kind of daughter would do this to her family. My mother's eyes filled with tears, which I'd seen her deploy strategically too many times to be moved by now. Ellie was panicking openly, her voice rising. "You can't do this. My tuition is due next month. I'll have to drop out, then drop out, or get a job, or take out loans like normal students do. This is insane," my father shouted. "We'll lose the house, then sell it. Or refinance it. Or figure it out. You're adults. Adult things are your responsibility, not mine." My mother's tears had transformed into cold fury. "You're being cruel. After everything we've sacrificed for you, what did you sacrifice? Name one thing." She couldn't. Or wouldn't. Instead, she said the thing that I'd been waiting for her to say, the truth that had been hovering under every interaction we'd ever had. "You've always been difficult. From the day you were born, you've been a burden. We tried our best, but you were never the child we wanted." There it was. Finally. The truth we'd all been dancing around for 3 decades. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for finally being honest." My father, realizing my mother had gone too far, tried to backtrack. "She doesn't mean that. She's upset. We all are. But we can talk about this, figure something out." I stood up, picking up my bag. "There's nothing to figure out. I'm done. You can't just walk away from your family," he said, his voice desperate now. "Watch me." Ellie jumped up, grabbing my arm. "Please, Alex. I'm sorry. We're all sorry. Don't do this." I looked down at her hand on my arm, then up at her face. For the first time in my memory, she looked genuinely scared. "You'll be fine, Ellie. You're promising." "Remember?" I gently removed her hand and walked toward the door. My father's voice followed me, loud and ugly. "If you walk out that door, you're nothing to us. You understand?" "Nothing." I stopped at the door, hand on the knob, and looked back at them one last time. My father red-faced and furious. My mother crying perfectly, each tear calculated for maximum impact. Ellie standing there looking lost because for the first time in her life she was going to have to face consequences. "I've been nothing to you for a long time," I said. "The only difference is now I'm choosing it." I walked out. I got in my car. I drove home. And I did not cry. Not then, not that night, not the next day. I felt light. Free. Like I'd been carrying a weight so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. The phone calls started immediately. First dozens, then hundreds. Voicemails full of rage, pleading threats, guilt trips. My mother calling me ungrateful. My father calling me selfish. Ellie calling me cruel. I listened to the first few, then stopped. I knew the script. They weren't sorry for what they'd done. They were sorry they were facing consequences. The texts were worse. Ellie sent me pictures of her tuition bill, like I was supposed to feel guilty. My mother sent me articles about adult children who abandon their parents, about elder abuse, as if not funding their luxury lifestyle counted as abuse. My father sent me nothing but insults. I blocked them all after the first week. And then I got a text from Mark, my assistant. Actually, more than my assistant. My friend, maybe my only real friend. "Saw your family tried calling the office. You okay? I stared at that message for a long time. Was I okay? I'd just blown up my entire family, cut off all financial support, potentially ruined my sister's education and my parents' housing situation. By any normal standard, I should feel terrible. But I didn't. Yeah, I texted back. I'm okay. Good. You want to get dinner? We met at a taco truck near the office, sat on the curb eating carne asada and drinking Mexican Coke from glass bottles. Mark didn't ask questions. He just sat there, present, solid, real. Finally, I told him everything. The dinner, the confrontation, the decision. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Took you long enough." I actually laughed. Yeah, it did. You need anything? Place to stay. Legal advice. Someone to screen your calls, I'm good. But thank you. For asking. For caring enough to ask. He nodded. That's what friends do. Actual friends, not people who use you. We sat there as the sun set over LA, and I felt more at peace than I had in years. The next 2 weeks were strange. Quiet. My calendar had always been packed with family obligations, family emergencies, family demands. Now there was just space. I worked on my business. I went to the gym. I cooked actual meals instead of grabbing whatever I could between running errands for other people. I slept 8 hours a night. I woke up without that familiar knot of dread in my stomach. Mark noticed the change. You look different, he said one morning. How, I don't know. Lighter. Like you're actually here instead of always half somewhere else. He was right. I'd been half somewhere else for so long, always mentally calculating what I owed, what was needed, what crisis would come next. Now I was just here. Present. Myself. Then, 3 weeks after the confrontation, everything changed again. I was driving to a client meeting on a Wednesday afternoon, running through my pitch in my head. The light turned green. I accelerated through the intersection. I didn't see the SUV running the red light until it was too late. The sound of the impact was enormous, a crunching, screaming, tearing sound that seemed to go on forever. Then spinning glass, shattering, and finally stillness. I opened my eyes. I was hanging upside down, held by my seatbelt. Blood was dripping into my eyes from somewhere. My phone was ringing, the sound tinny and distant. Everything hurt. Everything. But I was alive. Hands appeared at the window. Voices. The jaws of life cutting through metal. Paramedics extracting me with careful efficiency. The ride to the hospital was a blur of pain and noise and bright lights. I drifted in and out of consciousness, catching fragments. Fractured ribs. Possible concussion. Extremely lucky. Could have been so much worse. When I finally woke up fully, it was night. I was in a hospital room, hooked up to machines, my body one massive ache. A nurse appeared immediately. You're awake. Good. How do you feel? Like I got hit by a truck. An SUV, actually. But yes, she checked my vitals, adjusted my IV. You have some visitors who've been here for hours. Your family. My stomach dropped. I don't want to see them. She looked at me with kind eyes that had probably seen every family dysfunction imaginable. That's your right. I can have them removed if you'd like, please. She nodded and left. Minutes later, I heard voices in the hallway. Loud voice. My father demanding to see me. My mother insisting they had a right. Ellie crying. Security's calm, professional refusal. Then quiet. They were gone. But my phone wasn't. When the nurse returned it to me from the property bag, I saw 347 missed calls and texts. I opened the voicemails. My mother's voice, shaking with genuine terror. Alex, please, they said you were in an accident. Please be okay. Please call us back. I can't lose you. My father crying, Alex, it's Dad. I'm so sorry. For everything. Just please be okay. Please. Ellie, they said you might not make it. I just can't. I need you. We all need you. Please don't die. I'm so sorry for everything. I listened to all of them. Every disparate, panicked message. I felt nothing. Or not nothing. I felt sad. Sad that it had taken me almost dying for them to realize I existed. Sad that fear of loss was the only thing that made them see my value. Sad that even now, even after everything, a small part of me wanted to comfort them. But I didn't. I deleted the messages. I blocked their numbers. And when the nurse asked again if I wanted visitors, I said no. I was in the hospital for 5 days. Mark came every day bringing me books and podcasts and terrible hospital food alternatives. My business partner Sarah sent flowers. Clients sent cards. People who actually knew me, who actually cared about me beyond what I could provide, showed up. My family was not among them. On the 5th day, the doctor cleared me to go home with strict instructions for rest and follow-up appointments. Mark drove me back to my apartment, helped me get settled, stocked my fridge. "You need anything else?" he asked. "No. Thank you. For everything." "That's what family does," he said pointedly, and left me smiling. I spent the next 3 weeks recovering. Physically, I healed faster than expected. Emotionally, it was more complicated. I had time to think, maybe too much time. About my family, about the life I'd been living, about who I was beyond my usefulness to others. Late one night, unable to sleep, I opened my laptop and did something I'd never done before. I looked at my life as if it belonged to someone else, a client coming to me for rebranding. What would I tell them? Their entire identity is built on being needed. That's not sustainable. That's not healthy. They're not a person in their own story, they're a supporting character in everyone else's. They need to fire their current life and build a new one. So I started building. I made plans. Real plans, not the someday dreams I'd been deferring for years. I wanted to travel. I wanted to learn to paint. I wanted to date someone who saw me as a partner, not a parent. I wanted friends who checked in on me without needing something. I wanted a life that was mine. The doorbell rang one evening 6 weeks after the accident. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole and froze. Ellie. Alone. She looked terrible. Hair, unwashed clothes, wrinkled dark circles under her eyes. She wasn't looking at her phone. She was just standing there waiting. I debated not answering. I could wait her out, let her leave, maintain my boundaries. But something made me open the door. Not hope. Not forgiveness. Just curiosity about what had changed. "Hi," she said quietly. "Hi, can we talk? I don't know." "Can we?" She flinched. I deserve that. I didn't disagree. I also didn't invite her in. We stood there, me in the doorway, her in the hall. "I dropped out," she said finally. "Of Chapman, yeah. I couldn't afford it without you. I tried to get loans, but I have no credit history. Dad tried to co-sign, but his credit is shot. Mom tried to remortgage the house, but they're already underwater on it because they've been missing payments. And you're telling me this why I'm not asking for money." That surprised me enough that I actually looked at her properly. She meant it. "I got a job," she continued. "At a coffee shop. It's minimum wage plus tips. I'm living with a roommate in a crappy apartment in Long Beach. I'm broke and exhausted, and I have no idea what I'm doing with my life." "Good." She looked up at me, shocked. "Good, yeah. Good. Welcome to real life. It sucks. You figure it out anyway." Tears started rolling down her face. Real ones this time, not the performative crying she'd used for years to manipulate our parents. "I'm so sorry. For all of it. For using you. For never seeing you. For treating you like an ATM instead of a person." "Why now?" I asked. "Why are you sorry now?" "Because I lost everything. My school, my apartment, my lifestyle. And in losing it, I realized none of it was mine. It was all yours. My entire life has been built on your work, your money, your sacrifice. And I never even said thank you." "No, you didn't. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anything. I just needed you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. What we all did. And I'm ashamed." I stood there looking at my little sister, really looking at her for maybe the first time. She'd always been the pretty one, the charming one, the one everything came easy to. Now she looked tired and scared and real. "Are Mom and Dad okay?" I asked, surprising myself. "They're selling the house. Moving into a 2-bedroom apartment in Riverside. Dad got a job managing a hardware store. Mom's working part-time at a boutique. They're barely making it, but they're making it." "Good. You're not going to help them." "No. Even though they're struggling, especially because they're struggling. Struggle builds character. I should know. I've been struggling for them my entire life." She nodded slowly. "They told me to ask you for money. They said you'd give in eventually, and instead you got a job." "Yeah." It felt better than begging. We stood there in silence. Finally, Ellie asked, "Are you okay?" "After the accident, I'm fine. Healing." I was so scared when I heard. "I thought you might die, and the last thing I'd said to you was asking for money." "Yeah. That would have been a bad last impression." She almost smiled. "Almost. Can I ask you something?" "Sure." How did you do it? Live with us for so long. Put up with all of it, I thought about that. Really thought about it. I don't know. I think I convinced myself that if I just gave enough, loved enough, helped enough, you'd all finally see me. Finally appreciate me. Finally love me back the way I loved you. Did you love us? I don't know anymore. I think I loved the idea of a family. The family I wished we were. Not the family we actually are. More tears streamed down her face. I wish I could go back and change everything. You can't. But you can change what happens next. She wiped her face with her sleeve. I should go. I just needed you to know I'm sorry. And I'm working on being better. Being someone who deserves a sister like you. She turned to leave. Ellie, I called. She stopped. Good luck. With the job. With figuring things out. Thanks. She left. I closed the door and leaned against it, breathing slowly. That conversation had cost me something opened, something I'd been keeping sealed. But it had also shown me something important. Ellie was capable of change. Maybe. Time would tell. But she was at least capable of recognizing what had been done, of taking responsibility, of trying. That was more than our parents had managed. 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. Actual mail, not email. My father's handwriting on the envelope. I almost threw it away without opening it. Instead, I made tea, sat at my kitchen table, and opened it carefully. The letter was short. Alex, I don't expect you to read this. I don't expect anything from you anymore. But I need to say it anyway. I was wrong. About everything. I treated you like a resource instead of a daughter. I took you for granted. I made you feel small because it made me feel big. I let your mother's favoritism toward Ellie blind me to your worth. I let my own insecurities and failures poison the way I saw your success. When you walked out, I was angry. I told myself you were selfish, ungrateful, cruel. But then you almost died and I realized the truth. I was terrified of losing you, not because I love you, though I do, but because I'd never told you I love you. I'd never shown you. I'd only taken from you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just need you to know that I see it now. I see what I did. And I'm sorry. I'm so deeply, truly sorry. Your father. I read it 3 times. I cried finally for the first time since all of this started. Not because I forgave him. Not because the apology fixed anything. But because it was real. I could feel the weight of those words, the truth in them. It didn't change what had happened. It didn't erase the years of damage. But it was something. A starting point, maybe. Or an ending point. I wasn't sure yet. I folded the letter carefully and put it in a drawer. I might respond someday. Or I might not. That was my choice to make on my timeline for my reasons. I'd earned that right. Mark and I expanded the business. We took on the condominium project and crushed it. We hired 3 more people. My revenue doubled. I bought a new car, a Tesla this time, something I'd wanted for years but had never let myself have because there was always a family expense. I signed a lease on a better apartment, a 2-bedroom in Santa Monica with a view of the ocean. I joined a painting class. I went on dates. Some were disasters. Some were fun. None of them were serious yet, but that was okay. I was learning to enjoy my own company first. I went to therapy. Every week I sat in that office and unpacked 17 years of dysfunction, of parentification, of emotional neglect disguised as family duty. My therapist, Dr. Chen, helped me understand that I wasn't responsible for fixing my family, that their growth was their job, not mine, that I could be compassionate without being complicit, that boundaries weren't cruelty, that I deserved to be loved for who I was, not what I could provide. It was hard work, harder than running my business, harder than cutting them off, but it was necessary work. 6 months after the accident, I got a package. Inside was a photo I'd never seen before. Me at 17, asleep at the kitchen table, surrounded by college brochures and financial aid forms. I was wearing my work uniform from the marketing firm. My hair was pulled back. I looked exhausted. On the back, in my mother's handwriting, you carried so much. More than you should have. I'm sorry we let you. I'm sorry we asked you to. I'm sorry we never said thank you. I'm sorry we never said we were proud. I'm sorry we made you feel like you weren't enough when you were always more than enough. You were always more than we deserved. I put the photo on my bookshelf. Not in a frame, just propped up against some books. A reminder. Not of what I'd lost, but of what I'd survived. Of what I'd escaped. of who I'd been and who I was becoming. Time passed. Ellie and I started texting occasionally. Short messages. She'd tell me about her job, her roommate, her small victories. I'd tell her about my work, my life, my small victories. We weren't close. Maybe we never would be. But we were honest. I ran into my parents once at a grocery store in Culver City. They looked older, smaller somehow. My mother's hair had gone more gray. My father had lost weight. They saw me at the same moment I saw them. For a second, we all froze. Then my mother smiled, tentative and sad. My father nodded. I nodded back. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. They went their direction. He went mine. It was enough. More than enough. I learned that I didn't need their approval to be whole. I didn't need their acknowledgement to be successful. I didn't need their love to be loved. I had built a life, a real life full of people who saw me, who valued me, who loved me for who I was, not what I could do for them. Mark, Sarah, Dr. Dacian, Chen, my painting class friends, the guy I'd been dating for 3 months who made me laugh and never once asked me to solve his problems. These were my people. This was my family, the one I'd chosen, the one that chose me back. On my 31st birthday, I woke up in my Santa Monica apartment, sun streaming through the windows. My phone buzzed with messages. Mark sending a gif of a birthday cake explosion. Sarah sending a photo of the team holding a banner that said, "Happy birthday, boss." The guy I was dating sending a message asking if I was free for dinner. My painting teacher sending encouragement for the gallery, showing she was organizing next month. And there at the bottom of the list, a message from Ellie, "Happy birthday, sis. I remembered this year. I'll remember every year from now on. Love you," I smiled. I made coffee. I sat on my balcony watching the ocean, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Maybe ever. Peace. Complete, uncomplicated peace. I'd lost my family. Or maybe I'd lost the illusion of family. But I'd found something better. I'd found myself. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been the person everyone takes from but nobody gives to? Have you ever felt invisible in your own life? Have you ever realized that the people who should love you most only love what you can do for them? If you have, know this, you don't owe anyone your happiness. You don't owe anyone your peace. You don't owe anyone access to your life, your money, your energy, your time. Even if they're family. Especially if they're family. Because family should be the people who see you, who value you, who love you for existing, not for what you provide. And if the family you were born into can't do that, you're allowed to build a new one. You're allowed to choose yourself. You're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to be free. It's not selfish. It's survival. It's self-respect. It's self-love. And you deserve it. All of it. So if this story hit home for you, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever had to choose yourself over family? And if you're still stuck in that situation, what's holding you back? Let's talk about it. And if you found value in this story, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Because we all deserve to be seen. We all deserve to be valued. We all deserve to be free.